Well, good evening, Life Groups. My name is Kyle, and I want to go over the notes from my sermon that I preached on Sunday, and hopefully it'll help with your life group tonight. The message title is called Burn the Plows, and the idea is it comes from the life of Elisha and his calling, and how it's the importance of burning the plows in our life. I started off with an idea of good enough. Good enough as Christian living is that it's a baseline living marked with mediocrity, being stuck in spiritual survival mode and being controlled by complacency. And too many times as Christians, we live in that. We live in a life that's marked with mediocrity and complacency, and we're just okay with going through the motions. And then the idea that we try to strive for greatness, and it's this vague, unrealistic aspiration of doing something better, but it doesn't really work in real life. And so we have good enough, which is this kind of leaves us in stagnation, leaves us unhappy, and then grasping for greatness lends to this endless frustration. So there's this constant battle of being frustrated or being stuck in stagnation, and neither of those are where we want to be. But the third option, which I believe is life-changing, is in understanding that God is ready to accomplish a kind of greatness in our lives that is entirely out of human reach, beyond what we see in ourselves on our best day, but exactly what God has seen in us the whole time. And so in John chapter 14, verse 12, it says, I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I'm going to be with the Father. And the idea is that God's calling us to greater works, not in and of ourselves, but to do something with Him, to be with Him. And then if we're connected with the Father, with the Son, we will experience greater things and be able to do greater things for our Jesus. And so this brings us to the main text of what I shared on Sunday is 1 Kings 19, verses 19 through 21. And the first point I made from that passage was, God is calling us to a higher calling. And when Elisha got his calling, he was plowing a field. It says that he was the 12th man. So he was the farthest back. He would have been, his scenery would not have changed at all, if you catch my drift. And yet that's exactly where God called him, in the midst of a mundane job, going day to day, hard work. But this is exactly where God called him. And the mantle that Elijah would have thrown on Elisha would have been a life-changing thing. The Hebrew word is adarath, and it's literally an outer covering, usually made of some type of sheepskin. And this would have been, everyone who would have saw that particular mantle would know, that he's now a prophet. And so his destiny changed in a moment. And I believe that God wants to do that in every day. God's got a mantle He's giving to us every single day, and that's His Spirit, His presence. And every day God's got divine opportunities and divine things that He wants to do in our lives with us. And so the greater thing that happened in Elisha's life happened in a moment, in the mundane. That's my first point, is that God's got that higher calling for us. The second point is that God is calling us to deeper surrender. And notice what Elisha did in verses 20 and 21. He killed the livestock. He offered a sacrifice. But he didn't stop just there. He burned the plowing equipment. And he burned his livelihood. He burned his source. And the reason I think he did that was because he knew that if he had something to go back to, he would go back to it when the times got tough, when things got messy, when things got uncomfortable. And so the challenge is what things in our lives do we need to burn? What things are tethering us to our past? And the story that I ended with was a story of how the song I Have Decided came into being. And the story is actually very tragic. Missionaries come to India. They go to a very brutal village in India, and a family gives their heart to Jesus and gets baptized. The village elder or chieftain finds out about it and tries to make a show of what happens if you accept Jesus, and ends up killing the two boys of this of the father who just gave their heart to Christ and then kills the mother and ends up killing him. But through this, the father, watching his sons and wife die, famously said, I have decided to follow Jesus. The world behind me, the cross before me. No turning back, no turning back. And so the idea is, you know what? No matter what, I'm surrendering everything, every aspect of my life, because there's nothing more important than Jesus. And so I hope this helps with your life group. I pray that you have a great life group tonight. Have a great one. Bye.